He grew up in the grit of Birmingham, surrounded by shadows and struggle. But what rose from that darkness would change music forever. His voice summoned fear, his life defied death, and his legend blurred the line between man and monster. This is no ordinary biography. This is the twisted, triumphant journey of Ozzy Osbourne, the one and only Prince of Darkness. Ozzy Osbourne was born John Michael Osborne on December the 3rd of 1948 in the industrial town of Aston, Birmingham, England. He was one of 6 children in a working-class family. His mother, Lillian, was a factory worker, and his father, John Thomas Jack Osborne, worked nights as a toolmaker. The family lived in a small 2-bedroom house, and John earned the nickname Ozzy while at school. Childhood was tough for Ozzy. The Osborne family lived in relative poverty, and Ozzy struggled with dyslexia and a thick Brummie accent that made him self-conscious. More darkly, at the age of 11, he was repeatedly sexually abused by local bullies, an ordeal that he later described as terrible. It seemed to go on forever, he said. Despite hardships, Ozzy found solace in music and performance. He loved acting in the school plays like Mikado and the HMS Pinafore. He became obsessed with the Beatles after hearing their 1963 hit, She Loves You, a moment he credits with inspiring him to become a musician. At 15, Ozzy left school and worked a series of odd jobs: a construction worker, a trainee plumber, a horn tuner at a car factory, and even a slaughterhouse worker. However, petty crimes soon enticed him. In his late teens, he tried his hand at burglary and failed miserably. He was arrested for robbing a clothing store, and unable to pay the fine, Ozzy served 6 weeks in Winson Green Prison in 1966. Reflecting on his criminal stint, Ozzy later laughed that he was no good at all, a fucking useless individual.
I didn't want to go to jail, but that's where I ended up. When you're in a place full of bad people, it's a bit of an education. They don't want to kill you, they want to have sex with a young boy with long auburn hair. 1 month in jail is long enough. And my father didn't pay the fine because he wanted to teach me a lesson, so he said. He taught me a lesson in the respect that after 6 weeks in prison, I knew I didn't want to go back. I had no idea what my life was about to explode into. I had no idea. I've got to go for a piss.
Jail was a turning point on release for Ozzy. Ozzy was determined to focus on music and never again be a number in a prison. In 1967, fresh out of jail and hungry for purpose, Ozzy answered an ad that would change his life forever. Old schoolmate Terrence Geezer Butler needed a singer for his new band. Ozzy joined Geezer's short-lived group called Rare Breed. And though that brand fizzled just after 2 shows, Ozzy and Geezer stuck together. They soon formed a new blues rock band called Polka Tulk Blues alongside guitarist Tony Lomi and drummer Bill Ward, who had been in a group called Mythology.
In the beginning, is it true that when you were forming Black Sabbath, you were looking for a lead singer and spotted an ad from Ozzy Osbourne in a music store?
It is, yes.
Is that the way, is that true?
Yes, it is true. I mean, Ozzy was at school in a younger year than me.
Yeah.
With me. But I didn't really associate with him at school. And we were looking for a singer, Bill and myself, the drummer. And we went around the music shop and we saw this ad, Ozzy Zig requires gig.
Oh.
I said to Bill, I know an Ozzy. I said, but he can't be.
Can't be the same guy.
And sure enough, we went round to the address of the house and knocked the door, and his mother came. John, it's for you. Yeah. And I saw him walking up the hall, and I said to Bill, forget him. Anyway, he came to the door, and we talked to him for a bit, and then we left. And I said to Bill, oh, forget that. You know, I said, we don't want to go there. I said, as far as I know, he can't sing. I never knew he could sing.
Yep.
And then sort of a few days later, Ozzy came round to my house. I didn't live that far away from him. He came round with Geezer, the bass player, and looking for a drummer. And it turns out that I said, well, Bill's a drummer. And Bill said, no, I'm sticking with you.
Yeah.
And so we said, well, why don't we all get together and have a go? And that's what we did.
And you did.
Polka Tulk wasn't a great name, nor was their next moniker, Earth. In 1969, after a mix-up where they were booked for a show meant for another band named Earth, the quartet decided a change was in order. One day, the band noticed people lining up to see a horror film across the street. That film was Boris Karloff's Black Sabbath. Inspired, they renamed themselves Black Sabbath in August of 1969, intending to create music that was the sonic equivalent of a horror movie.
Well, we used to rehearse across the road from a movie theatre and I think it was Tony who said, isn't it weird that people pay money to go and get this out of them. You know, why don't we do music that way?
Purely because the rehearsal place where we were rehearsing was across the road from a movie house. And we just looked at a line of people waiting to go in to see this horror movie, and we thought, isn't it funny that people pay money to get the pants scared off them? And we just thought, yeah, why don't we try and do that, put that kind of a theme to music?
They incorporated ominous, heavy blues riffs and gloomy lyrics. Geezer Butler, who wrote most of the lyrics, even drew on occult themes. One night, he claims he awoke from a nightmare of a dark figure at the foot of his bed and told Ozzy about it. Together, they channeled the fright into writing the song Black Sabbath, giving birth to an entirely new dark, heavy metal aesthetic. Black Sabbath's eponymous debut album, Black Sabbath, was released on Friday the 13th of February 1970. Despite minimal promotion, it was an instant sensation, resonating with youths who found its heavy, doom-laden sound thrilling. Powered by Lomy's thunderous guitar riffs, Ward's pounding drum, Butler's sinister bass and lyrics, and Ozzy's haunting, eerie vocals, Black Sabbath effectively invented heavy metal music. Their second album, Paranoid, was released later in 1970, made them superstars immediately. Paranoid topped the UK charts and brought the world timeless metal anthems like Iron Man and War Pigs, along with the hit title track Paranoid. These songs, with their morbid themes and heavy riffs, define the heavy metal genre's foundation. By 1971, just a year after their debut, Black Sabbath was prolific and unstoppable. They released Master of Reality in 1971. It was another platinum seller that further cemented their sound. Its sludgy, down-tuned style is cited as a major influence on later doom metal. Critics sneered. Rolling Stone infamously dismissed Master of Reality as naive, simplistic, repetitive, and even doggerel. But fans disagreed. Sabbath's popularity only grew. In late 1972 came Black Sabbath Volume 4, and in 1973 the band surprised critics with the more complex Sabbath Bloody Sabbath album, which earned Sabbath their first positive mainstream reviews and is now considered a heavy metal masterpiece. The band was on a roll, releasing Sabotage in 1975, which some press called their best album yet, and Technical Ecstasy in 1976. Through these years, Ozzy's welling voice and dark charisma were front and center as Black Sabbath toured the world, attracting legions of devoted fans. Though as Ozzy quipped, in the early days the band wasn't very popular with the women. Off stage, two developments in the early 70s would shape Ozzy's personal life. First, around 1971, he met Sharon Osbourne, the daughter of music manager Don Osbourne, who was courting Black Sabbath as a client. Sharon was just a receptionist at her father's office then, but Ozzy was immediately drawn to her, though he assumed she probably thought he was a lunatic. Sharon would later become far more important in his life. Second, Ozzy got married young. In 1971, he married Thelma Riley, who he had met at a Birmingham nightclub. He became stepfather to Thelma's son and fathered two children of his own, Jessica and Louis, in the early 1970s. However, Ozzy later admitted he was a terrible husband and an absentee father during those wild Sabbath years. Consumed by touring, fame, and heavy drug use, he barely remembers the birth of his kids and called that first marriage a terrible mistake. By the mid-1970s, Black Sabbath were heavy metal royalty, but the wheels were starting to wobble. Years of relentless recording, touring, and substance abuse were taking a toll on the band's creativity and chemistry. Each member indulged in copious drugs and alcohol use, but Ozzy especially gained a reputation for his outrageous intake and behavior. Tony Lomy noted that although all of them partied hard, Ozzy had the unhealthiest lifestyle of them all.
I can't change it, but there's certain things you think, oh, you know, you could have done it in a different way.
What things?
Well, a lot of the stuff. I mean,
give me some examples.
The drug side of it, for instance. I mean, if I'd have known what I know now, I certainly wouldn't have dabbled to that extent. I don't think any of us would.
Ozzy Osbourne has described cocaine as the cancer of the band.
Yeah, it was, absolutely.
How much damage do you think it did to you longer term?
As far as the band was concerned, I think it done a lot of damage. Initially, we thought it was great and we thought it was helping us create. But at the end of the day, when it came to a point where we had to replace Ozzy, we were in a bad way, and he was certainly in a bad way.
Yet somehow Ozzy was usually the last one standing after epic binges. This hard living began to affect Black Sabbath's music. Albums like Technical Ecstasy in 1976 and Never Say Die in 1978 received mixed reviews, and internally the band was unraveling at an alarming rate.
One last thing, if you have any drugs or any alcohol, give me some.
Tensions came to a head as the band tried to write and record Never Say Die in 1978. They were so strung out on drugs that sessions frequently fell apart. We'd go down to the studio and have to pack up because we were too stoned. Everybody was playing a different thing, Lomi recalled. The subsequent tour saw them blown off the stage by younger upstarts like Van Halen, who opened for Sabbath in 1978. Ozzy's interest in Black Sabbath was waning too. Late in 1977, he abruptly quit for a few months, planning a solo project called Blizzard of Oz, before the brand convinced him to return. By 1979, however, the band members had had enough of Ozzy's unreliability and drug-fueled antics. On April 27th of 1979, Black Sabbath fired Ozzy Osbourne, a seismic moment in rock history. They cited his excessive substance abuse and erratic behavior as the cause. Ozzy later argued he was using no more drugs and booze than the rest of them. But by that point, his contributions had dwindled and his voice was suffering. Black Sabbath brought in Ronnie James Dio, former Rainbow vocalist, as Ozzy's replacement, launching a successful new chapter without Ozzy.
My separation from Sabbath, I thought it was all over for me. I thought, I was probably end up back in a factory in Birmingham. I did this.
Why did they kick you out of the band?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I think they wanted to kick somebody else out, and we were all so drunk they could only mention the word Ozzy,
Then comes the time when you get fired. Did that hurt?
Well, it was kind of weird because it was like the pot calling the kettle black because we were all so messed up anyway. So I said, why are you firing me? Because you're pissed? I said, no, the reason why I'm getting fired because I'm the first one to get pissed. I mean, everyone, I would get up, no matter what I would do, I would always be awake early. So I would start drinking and getting stoned earlier than them. They wouldn't get up till 2 o'clock. It was a very sad period. I remember leaving there. I locked myself in a hotel room for three months, just getting smashed out of my brains every day, So I'm in there one day, and Sharon knocks the door and she goes, if you clean your act up, I want a manager. When she said that to me, I'm like, you want to manage me? What the fuck are you saying, mate? She's got me together.
But she changed everything for you.
She saved my life. But it was time anyway. It was time for a change. I'd had an idea of doing a solo project all along the line, and it was kind of, we'd outrun our course, for that time, and it was the best thing that had happened, actually.
My separation from Sabbath, I thought it was all over for me. I thought, I was probably end up back in a factory in Birmingham.
But at the time, I was like, it's over, I'm back on the dole, get my burgling suit out again.
For Ozzy, getting sacked was devastating, and ironically, it gave him more reason to drown himself in drugs and alcohol. He holed up in a hotel in Los Angeles for 3 months on a monumental bender. I'd got 96,000 euros for my share of the name, Sabbath, so I just locked myself away, spent 3 months doing coke and booze. He later admitted he was suicidally depressed and might never have emerged if not for one person, Sharon Osbourne, his former manager's daughter. Sharon, sent by her father to keep an eye on his investment, found Ozzy in shambles and took charge of his care. She became his manager and ultimately saved his life and career, coaxing him out of his stupor and encouraging him to form a new band. I would have died if Sharon hadn't offered to manage me, Ozzy later said, crediting her with giving him a second chance. With Sharon's guidance, Ozzy Osbourne embarked on a solo career that would soon rival his Sabbath fame. In late 1979, they gathered a band of top-notch young musicians, including guitar virtuoso Randy Rhoads, lyricist Bob Daisley, and drummer Lee Kerslake, initially calling themselves the Blizzard of Oz. They recorded a set of songs that blended melodic hard rock with classical-influenced guitar work from Rhoads. The record company decided to simply market the album under Ozzy's name, and in September of 1980, Blizzard of Oz was released. The first solo Ozzy Osbourne album. It was a smash success, going quadruple platinum in the United States, without even a top 40 single. Fans were especially thrilled by the now classic track, Crazy Train, with its unforgettable opening riff and Ozzy's rallying cry of all aboard. Blizzard of Oz proved that Ozzy, often underestimated, was still a creative force to be reckoned with. In a short time, Ozzy's solo career took off. He followed up with Diary of a Madman in 1981, another multi-platinum album that featured songs like Over the Mountain and Flying High Again. Ozzy later called Diary of a Madman his personal favorite album.
I think Blizzard and Diary of a Madman were two of the finest albums I've ever made, you know. I mean, they're all, I mean, it's 30 years ago, and they still sound as good now as they always did. I remember him on the song Diary of a Madman. He came out of the studio one day and he goes, "I'm not happy with what I'm playing on the solo." I said, "Well, the studio's there. Spend as much time as you need to feel you're happy, because you've got to listen to it for the rest of your life. It's there forever." And so he went in on a Saturday or Friday or something, and he came out a couple of days later, and he had a big grin on his face, and he says, "I think I've got it." So I go in, I heard the solo. It pinned my ears, but I remember thinking, wow, this is going to be colossal.
Drummer Tommy Aldridge and bassist Rudy Zarzo joined during the recording, but Ozzy and Randy Rhoads remained the driving creative duo. Critics who had written Ozzy off were silenced by the quality of these records and the tightness of his new band. Even Ozzy's old Sabbath bandmate Bill Ward admitted he was a bit bitter and envious seeing Ozzy reborn. He seemed to be coming around from whatever he had gone through, on his way again making records. "I had a thoroughly miserable time in the early 1980s without him." Tragically, just as Ozzy's solo career was ascending, disaster struck. On March 19, 1982, while on a tour in Florida, a freak plane accident took the life of 25-year-old Randy Rhoads, Ozzy's dear friend and lead guitarist. Rhoads was killed when a small plane, taken without permission by the tour bus driver for a reckless joyride, clipped the band's tour bus and crashed, also killing a crew member.
Out of the south. He banked, was coming in, I think, in my opinion, that he was going to buzz the bus, and he just lost it. The wing was way too low. The left wing struck the bus about approximately 6 feet up on the bus. He did a cartwheel, came through the tree. The plane came into the top part of the garage here, then exploded. And when they woke up, according to what Sharon and Ozzy and them were telling us, they thought they were at, matter of fact, they didn't know where they were at. They were supposed to be in Orlando.
Well, a lot is being said here today, and a lot isn't being said, but one thing is for sure, Ozzy Osbourne's band won't be playing in Orlando. There was a tragedy here at Flying Baron Estates yesterday at 10 a.m. involving the lead guitar player, Randy Rhoads, 25-year-old talented guitar player for the Ozzy Osbourne band. He was killed instantly when his single-engine aircraft cartwheeled after striking the tour bus that in fact had Ozzy on board.
I know that recently there's been a professional and a personal tragedy in your life.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I'm surprised that you went ahead with your commitment to be here, and I appreciate that. And I know you wanted to take a minute here to explain.
All I can say is, in the last week, guys, people out there, I've lost two of the greatest people in my life. But it ain't gonna stop me, because I'm for rock and roll is for the people. And I love people, and that's what I'm about.
You wanted to mention something about the circumstances surrounding?
Well, it's all under the investigation at the moment. I was asleep on the bus as usual. The plane hit the bus, everything went up, and so I mean, I don't really want to talk about it at the moment.
Okay, I certainly understand that, but nonetheless, I appreciate you coming by here tonight. Now, the concert, the tour, momentarily suspended?
It's momentarily suspended, but I'm going to continue because Randy would have liked me to continue, so would Rachel. And I'm not going to stop because you can't kill rock and roll.
These are your seamstress and also your guitar player. So when will the tour be renewed?
We're going for April 1. And with God's luck, we'll do it, you know. But I'm going to get out there and do it. It's the best thing I can do, you know.
Okay.
It's the only thing I can do.
Ozzy witnessed the fiery crash and was traumatized by the loss of Rhoads, whom he considered as close as family. He fell into a deep depression and canceled the tour for several weeks. Nevertheless, with Sharon's support, Ozzy persevered. In an impressive feat of resilience, he resumed touring a couple of weeks later with a new guitarist. After hurried auditions, first, Bernie Thomas played with him for a few shows, then Brad Gillis of Night Ranger to finish off the tour. Ozzy dedicated subsequent live releases like Speak of the Devil in 1982 and Tribute, released 1987, to Rhoads' memory. Around this same time, Ozzy cemented his reputation as rock's ultimate wild man with a string of infamous incidents and controversies. In January 1982, mere days before Rhodes' death, Ozzy made headlines for a grotesque onstage stunt in Des Moines, Iowa. Thinking an audience-thrown bat was a rubber toy, he grabbed it and bit its head off mid-concert, only to realize the bat was real and possibly alive when blood filled his mouth. Ozzy had to be treated for rabies. He took shots afterwards. This shocking moment became legendary in rock lore, forever linking Ozzy with bats in the public imagination. A year prior, in 1981, Ozzy had also bit the heads off of 2 live doves during a meeting with his record label. Initially, he had intended a PR stunt releasing the doves as a sign of peace, but in a drunken, frustrated impulse, he grabbed and bit them instead, horrifying onlookers. The bizarre episode got him promptly fired from CBS Records offices, but added to his mythos as the Prince of Darkness, who would do anything.
And the bird landed on Ozzy's knee, and he picked it up and put it in his mouth and ripped its head off.
There was a little bit of blood dripping from his lip, and I was quite horrified by it.
And there's all these smiling people going. This carcass was flapping around the table and feathers were flying in the air and they were all like throwing up all over the place. It was quite interesting to see these office people with the ties and this with all puke things.
Still, the controversy further fueled the Christian Knight's accusations that Ozzy's music was evil or satanic. And then there was the Alamo incident in February 1982. Ozzy, intoxicated and dressed in Sharon's clothes after she hid his own to prevent trouble, wandered to the Alamo in San Antonio, Texas, and urinated on a historic monument, the Alamo Cenotaph. He was arrested for public intoxication and earned a decade-long ban from the city of San Antonio. The ban was eventually lifted in 1992 after Ozzy apologized and donated to the Daughters of the Republic of Texas. The incident epitomized Ozzy's out-of-control antics in the 1980s.
I thought I was king of the world, you know, and I was doing so much coke and so much booze, and 1 glass leads to 2, 2 leads to 4, in the end I'd do something stupid.
The Alamo.
I was legless with a bottle of Courvoisier in my hand at 9 o'clock in the morning. I wanted to take a pee, so I find this old wall, and I've got this green evening dress on. I'm standing there having a leak. And this guy goes mental, this deputy marshal or whatever. There he is! And I was dressed in one of my wife's green evening dresses, urinating up the fucking Alamo.
He's known as the lovable, mumbling, heavy metal dad with the hit TV series. But Ozzy Osbourne is also known for grabbing headlines nearly 20 years ago for urinating in front of the Alamo in an evening gown.
Rocker Ozzy Osbourne may be hot right now, but he left many San Antonians steaming hot when he visited the Alamo back on February 19th, 1982.
He urinated on the Alamo.
Ozzy left his mark at the Texas Shrine all right, and Van Henry Archer was a city councilman when it happened. He remembers the angry reaction.
It's really a hallowed museum, and for somebody to come and urinate like a dog, makes me wonder what kind of people would pay to go hear a guy like this. And
Archer even had a hand in a city resolution banning Ozzy.
Ozzy Osbourne was no longer welcome within the city limits of the city of San Antonio. Well, I guess if we had had the authority, we would have hung the guy, really. And I believe most of San Antonio would have been down with us holding onto that rope and pulling him up a tree.
Well, Ozzy sobered up, he got married, had a couple of kids, now he has a hit TV series. Oh yeah, and by the way, Ozzy did give a gift to the Alamo.
A $10,000 cash donation to the Daughters of the Republic to help maintain and restore the Alamo.
That pretty much ended the 10-year ban. To this day, Ozzy fans ask about the spot at the Alamo. But to Mr. Archer, Ozzy may have left his mark in music and in San Antonio, but he still doesn't see what's the big deal over Ozzy.
After 10 years, that's time to forgive the guy. But I'm still not going to pay to go see him.
Throughout the 80s, Ozzy's solo success continued despite these controversies, or perhaps partly because of them, as they kept him in the headlines. He released a string of hit albums, Bark at the Moon, featuring the fan-favorite title track and a new guitarist, Jake E. Lee, The Ultimate Sin in 1986, and No Rest for the Wicked in 1988, introducing longtime guitarist and protege Zakk Wylde. Yet, behind the scenes, Ozzy was often in turmoil, battling addiction, cycling through band members, and struggling to stay physically and mentally healthy. Amid the chaos of the early 80s, Ozzy found a stabilizing force in Sharon Osbourne. He divorced Thelma in 1982 and just months later, on July the 4th, married Sharon, the woman who had rescued him from the gutter and had become his manager. Ozzy cheekily chose Independence Day for the wedding so he'd never forget their anniversary. Sharon's business savvy and fierce devotion helped turn Ozzy's career into a financial empire. The couple had 3 children together: Amy, born in 1983, Kelly in 1984, and Jack in 1985. With Sharon at the helm, the Osbournes became one of rock's most famous families, though not without serious struggles. The late 80s were tumultuous for Ozzy and Sharon's marriage. Ozzy's drinking and drug use often spiraled out of control, leading to erratic and violent behavior. In August 1989, a drunk Ozzy physically attacked Sharon, choking her in a blackout rage and allegedly proclaiming he was going to kill her. Sharon managed to call the police, and Ozzy woke up in jail with the charge of attempted murder of his wife. He was stunned and remorseful. "I just went numb," he recalled of hearing the charges.
It was pretty damn scary because, you know, you're in a house, no neighbors each side, your kids are asleep, you know, you're on your own. What the hell do you do? You know, it's frightening.
You must have thought to yourself, what am I doing here? Why am I staying in this? What was the answer when you asked yourself that?
Oh God, yeah, many times I would consider it, and I'd go through the scenarios in my head. And that one time when you know, Ozzy was arrested, we were parted for 3 months. And of course, the first month it was like, oh, heaven, no arguments. There's, you know, lovely atmosphere in the house and it's great. And then the second month, you know, the kids are, where's Dad? We really want to see Dad. And I want to really see Dad too. And then by the 3rd month, you know, it's like, we can make it work.
I mean, I wouldn't imagine that you're ever a shrinking violet in any relationship, Sharon.
Oh no, as hard as Ozzy would hit me, I would clobber him back.
I was arrested for attempted murder of Sharon. I had no idea. I didn't know what they were talking about.
Can we just stop there? Attempted murder of your wife. Right. What happened? Do you remember any of that?
I don't remember any of it. I can remember going to a restaurant and that's about it.
Sharon? You remember it, obviously.
We came home from the restaurant. I was downstairs, he was up. Suddenly he comes downstairs a couple of hours later. He's got his underpants on. I thought he was ready for bed. And suddenly he just said, "We've made a decision." And I'm like, "We've?" "Yes, and you've got to die." And I'm like, "Okay. All right."
And so what did he do then?
He lunged on me and, you know, got me down to the floor and started strangling me.
How close did it get?
Pretty damn close, pretty damn close.
Instead of pressing charges, Sharon insisted he enter rehab, which he did for 6 months. The incident nearly ended their marriage, but incredibly, Sharon forgave Ozzy and they reconciled, though she did separate from him briefly in 2016 after discovering an affair. This dark episode showed the depths of Ozzy's addiction, as he later admitted he was astonished Sharon didn't end the relationship then and there. It was a wake-up call that led to periods of sobriety and a renewed commitment from Ozzy to be a better husband and father. Despite the personal drama, Sharon and Ozzy's partnership yielded huge professional successes. In 1996, Sharon founded Ozzfest, a traveling heavy metal festival, which Ozzy headlined alongside dozens of up-and-coming metal bands.
And so it was like, all right, should do Lollapalooza and, you know, things like that. And then the agent called back and said, oh no, you know what, they don't want Ozzy on Lollapalooza, he's not cool enough. And I'm like, how dare they say?
And my mom was like, we're gonna start our own festival.
Yeah, let's do our own thing. And that's how it came up with Ozzfest.
Ozzfest became a lucrative annual tour, 1996 through 2010, that helped launch bands like Slipknot, System of a Down, and many others, all while reinforcing Ozzy's status as the godfather of metal. The Osbournes also smartly capitalized on Ozzy's image and legacy by the end of the 90s. He released the platinum albums No More Tears in 1991, featuring the hit Mama, I'm Coming Home, and Osmosis in 1995, and even won a Grammy Award in 1994 for the best metal performances for I Don't Want to Change the World. As the 1990s closed, Ozzy shocked fans by reuniting, at least temporarily, with Black Sabbath.
People have been asking me why now, the reunion. I suppose God wanted it to be, I don't know. We tried on numerous occasions, and it always ended up in dismal failure and whatever. But I'm a true believer in fate.
The acrimony of 1979 had faded, and on July 26, 1997, the original Sabbath lineup, Ozzy, Lomi, Butler, and Ward, reunited on stage in Birmingham for Ozfest. This led to a live album, Reunion, in 1998, and a major world tour. Sabbath's reunion shows, albeit without Bill Ward for many dates, were massively successful and introduced a new generation to their pioneering music. Ozzy's dual role as solo artist and Sabbath frontman during this period solidified his legacy and earned him and the band a long-deserved honor, induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2006 as Black Sabbath.
I wonder how many times on this very night in the last 20 years that the words, "If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here," have been uttered. Well, here we go once more. Bill, Geezer, Ozzy, and Tony, if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here. Obviously, if there was no Black Sabbath, there would be no Metallica. And if there was no Black Sabbath, hard rock and heavy metal, as we know it today, would look, sound, and be shaped very, very differently. To be the ones chosen from the thousands of bands you have spawned in your wake, to honor you, Black Sabbath, and induct you into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on this night, a decade late or not. And with that, Bill, Geezer, Ozzy, and Tony, I salute you with much love, respect, appreciation, and gratitude. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the people who arranged this for finally getting us up here, because we've been chosen for about 7 times, to my knowledge, to receive this award, and this is the 8th time, and so we're finally here.
Ozzy would later also be inducted as a solo artist in 2024.
It is my great honor to officially induct the greatest to ever lace him up in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the one, the only, Ozzy Osbourne!
Thank you. Well, here we are. You know what? I can't believe I'm here myself, you know what I mean? First, let me get the thank yous out of the way, because I'm not going to bore you with a long, drawn-out fucking monologue. I'd like to thank whoever voted me into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for my solo work. A great thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really, thank you. And more so, my fans have been so loyal to me over the years. I cannot thank them enough. I've been fortunate over the years to play with some of the world's greatest guitar players, drummers, bass players. A few of them are here tonight. But I want to spend one thing for a guy by the name of Randy Rhoads. Because if I hadn't met Randy Rhoads, I don't think I'd be sitting here now. And more than that, my wife Sharon saved my life. And my grandbabies and I love them all. So, with all that, I'm going to get on with the show and hand it back to Jack.
Thank you, Ozzy. Thank you for existing, you legend.
If anyone needed proof of Ozzy Osbourne's unlikely transformation from feared Prince of Darkness to lovable pop culture icon, the 2000s provided it in spades. In 2002, Ozzy and his family, wife Sharon, teenage kids Kelly and Jack, and older daughter Amy, opted out. They became the stars of MTV's reality TV show, The Osbournes. The idea of a heavy metal madman helming a wholesome, foul-mouthed family sitcom seemed absurd, but that's exactly what the show was. Week after week, audiences were enthralled by the comical everyday life of the Osbourne household. Whether Ozzy bumbling around trying to work the TV remote,
What kind of fucking stupid...
The family's pack of small dogs causing chaos.
The smell of success.
The good-natured squabbling and profanity-laced loving exchanges among the clan.
I'm sick of it! I want a fucking break! You haven't been there for all of it, Mom!
When do you want the break? How now? You want it this week? Ozzy, go talk to her. She's sad. Go give her a hug.
She'll be all right.
She's fucking nuts.
The show was an instant hit. At one point, the most watched series on MTV, and it won an Emmy Award in 2002 for Outstanding Reality Program. Suddenly, Ozzy was not a rock legend, but a mainstream celebrity beloved by soccer moms and teens alike. In December 2003, he had a serious ATV accident on the grounds of his Buckinghamshire, UK estate. He broke his collarbone, 8 ribs, and a neck vertebrae, and almost stopped breathing at one point. Sharon recalled that Ozzy actually clinically died for over a minute after the crash. There was no pulse before he was resuscitated.
He's got bleeding in one lung, and they might have to go in and operate on that. They've got a specialist on the way to see him.
I feel like some fucking kung fu experts give me a fucking whack in the back of the neck. I had a Suzuki chop. Guaranteed to stop a rock star in his track.
The accident left him permanently physically affected. It also led to the discovery that he was suffering a genetic tremor condition, initially misdiagnosed as Parkinson's disease. This explained the tremors in his arms that had been noticeable for years. Ozzy recovered enough to appear at the 2004 NFL halftime show in England and to continue recording, releasing covers album Undercover in 2005 and studio album Black Rain in 2007. But from 2003 onward, his health became a larger struggle. In 2005, Black Sabbath, with Ozzy, was fittingly inducted into the UK Music Hall of Fame, and the original lineup continued to perform occasional gigs. Yet Ozzy's personal battles persisted. He freely admitted falling off the wagon around 2012 to 2013, binging on booze and drugs for a year and a half, and behaving insanely, until Sharon and his family pulled him back to sobriety.
Through all this, I haven't used drugs, I haven't used alcohol, I haven't done anything.
How long's it been?
Oh, I don't count now. It's been a long time, been like 10 years or something.
Does it get easier as
Oh,
time
no,
passes?
I just don't do it anymore, you know.
Yeah.
If I want to, I haven't wanted to do it, but I know what will happen if I'll be on my own, because they all turn into, I'm a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde drinker, me.
Are you sober now?
No, now, yeah, I'm never, but I have moments I've turned out.
Ozzy posted an apology to fans in 2013, acknowledging he had been an asshole to the people that loved him most during the relapse. It was a humbling moment that showed even in the 60s, Ozzy was still wrestling with the demons of addiction, but also still fighting them with his family's help. Heavy metal's founding fathers had one last ride left. In 2011, Ozzy and the original Black Sabbath members, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward, announced a reunion for a new album and a tour. Though Ward bowed out over contract disputes, and Tommy Clufetos from Ozzy's solo band replaced him on drums, the rest forged ahead. The resulting album, 13, in 2013, was a triumphant return to form. Remarkably, it debuted at #1 in both the UK and the US, a first in Sabbath's career. Fans and critics enjoyed hearing Ozzy's voice back with Iommi's crushing riffs on tracks like God Is Dead. The accompanying 13 tour drew huge crowds, proving the metal legends could still deliver. After Iommi's lymphoma diagnosis and treatment, he recovered. The band decided to go out on top. They launched the End Tour in 2016, advertised as Black Sabbath's final tour. Over the next year, they circled the globe one last time. On February 4, 2017, in their hometown of Birmingham, Black Sabbath played their final concert, appropriately ending with their namesake song, Black Sabbath, and the mega hit, Paranoid. Ozzy thanked the fans for decades of support and thus ended Black Sabbath's storied journey, a 49-year saga from 1968 to 2017. It was an emotional goodbye, but Ozzy made clear this was Black Sabbath's finale, not necessarily his own. In 2018, he announced No More Tours 2, ostensibly his farewell as a solo performer. However, life had other plans. A series of health crises from 2018 onward derailed these plans. First, an infection in his hand required surgery. Then a severe bout of a flu turned into pneumonia in early 2019. While recovering at home in LA, Ozzy suffered a fall in 2019 that aggravated his old quad bike injuries, requiring neck surgery and more cancellations. As he put it, "It just seems that since October, everything I touch has turned to shit." In early 2020, he made public the news that he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Ozzy emphasized it with a milder form, saying, "I'm not dying from Parkinson's. I've been working with it most of my life."
You know something? I never think about it. I don't go, "Oh, I've got Parkinson's," because it's so mild. I mean, it's ridiculous. If I don't take the medication, I tremor a little bit in the morning. I mean, as long as I take the medication, I'm fine.
It's more the spine injury that's been hindering you versus the Parkinson's.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it did cause tremors and mobility issues. He also revealed he had emphysema, further complicating his health. Through it all, he remained determined to keep recording music if he couldn't tour. Remarkably, Ozzy released 2 acclaimed studio albums in his 70s, Ordinary Man in 2020 and Patient Number 9 in 2022, featuring collaborations with artists like Elton John, Slash, and Jeff Beck. These records show that even as his body faltered, Ozzy's creative spirit and distinctive voice were intact. By 2023, however, Ozzy had to confront the reality that extensive touring was beyond his physical capability. In February 2023, with great reluctance, he canceled his upcoming tour dates in Europe and the UK, telling fans he was not physically capable. After years of surgeries and treatments had left him weak. "Believe me, I never wanted to let down my fans," he wrote, expressing his frustration that his singing voice was fine, but "my body is telling me I'm done." In mid-2025, at the age of 76, and after several bedridden years, Ozzy's family and friends organized a grand farewell concert titled Back to the Beginning. On July 5th, 2025, in front of 40,000 adoring fans at Villa Park in Birmingham, and nearly 6 million more watching via live stream, Ozzy took the stage one last time. Despite being so weakened by Parkinson's that he needed to perform sitting on a Gothic black throne, Ozzy delivered a spirited set. He opened with solo hits, even barking, "I am Iron Man, go fucking crazy" to the crowd, and then reunited with Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward for a short Black Sabbath set, the first time the original foursome had played together since 2015. In the pouring rain, Ozzy thanked the crowd from the bottom of his heart, proclaiming, "You have no idea how good this feels after years of being away from the stage." Just 17 days later, on July 22nd, 2025, Ozzy Osbourne died at home in Buckinghamshire, England, surrounded by his family. He was 76 years old. The cause of death was not immediately disclosed. Ozzy had suffered years of health complications, so it may have been related to those. But the timing shocked the world. He passed less than 3 weeks after that triumphant retirement show, almost as if he had hung on just long enough to say goodbye on his own terms. The Osbourne family statement read, "It is with more sadness than mere words can convey that we have to report that our beloved Ozzy Osbourne has passed away this morning. He was with his family and surrounded by love." News of Ozzy's death reverberated globally. Fans from Birmingham to Los Angeles wept, and social media flooded with tributes. For a man who once seemed indestructible, surviving decades of abuse and even a near-fatal ATV crash, it was truly the end of an era. Ozzy's funeral was a fitting send-off for a rock legend. On July 30th, 2025, thousands of fans lined the streets of Birmingham as a cortege carried Ozzy's coffin from Villa Park, the site of his final concert, past landmarks of his life. The procession stopped by his childhood home on Lodge Road and at the newly renamed Black Sabbath Bridge on Broad Street. In accordance with his wishes, Ozzy was laid to rest at Welder's house, the Osbourne's country estate in Buckinghamshire, where he had spent his final years. Ozzy Osbourne's legacy is monumental. Few artists have lived a life as full of extremes or left such a mark on music and culture. As the original frontman of Black Sabbath, Ozzy is widely hailed as the godfather of heavy metal music, having essentially birthed the genre in the late 60s and 70s. Ozzy's legacy is not just in the riffs and records, but in the very ideal of what a rock star can be: ferociously talented, unfiltered and untamed, funny and flawed, and absolutely unforgettable. The boy who heard the Beatles and dreamed of rock and roll immortality achieved exactly that. Immortality through music and myth. Long live Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness, the godfather of metal, and one of rock's most legendary souls.